Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're diagnosing why romantic heartbreak is hands down one of the most misunderstood and honestly deeply painful injuries we can ever suffer. I mean, at some point, practically every single one of us is going to get our heart broken, right? But despite it being so incredibly universal, we are just surprisingly terrible at dealing with it. So, we're going to unpack the fascinating and frankly pretty surprising science of healing a broken heart and figure out exactly how we can fight back.
We're kicking off our analysis with the story of a woman named Kathy. Now, Kathy had her whole life mapped out since middle school. But at age 27, instead of finding a husband like she'd planned, she found a lump in her breast. She had to go through months of absolutely brutal chemotherapy and painful surgeries, and then, incredibly, right when she recovers and is ready to get back out into the dating world, she finds another lump in her other breast. She had to do the whole grueling process all over again. But she did it. Kathy marshaled these incredible emotional resources to beat cancer twice. She was, literally, the definition of resilient.
And this sets up the central paradox we're looking at today. Because eventually, Kathy met a guy named Rich. They fell in love, everything was perfect, and she was entirely convinced he was going to propose during this romantic weekend in New England. But he didn't. Instead, Rich broke up with her. He just said he wasn't in love anymore. And here's the crazy part. This fiercely strong woman who survived cancer twice, she was completely shattered. 5 months later, she still couldn't stop thinking about him. She was entirely unable to tap into those exact same emotional resources that got her through 4 years of grueling cancer treatments. So here's the million-dollar question. Why exactly does this happen? Why do our absolute best survival instincts suddenly lead us down a blind alley when dealing with a breakup? Why do the exact same coping mechanisms that pull us through the darkest life challenges fail us so spectacularly when our heart gets broken? Well, it turns out when your heart is broken, you simply cannot trust what your own mind is telling you. Section 1. Your brain on heartbreak. You see, heartbreak isn't just a metaphor. It's not just some fleeting, dramatic emotion. It is a clinical, complex, psychological injury. And here is the wildest part. Being in that much emotional pain, feeling that profoundly alone, significantly impairs your intellectual functioning. It specifically targets the parts of your brain responsible for complex tasks, logic, and reasoning. Yes, you heard that right. While you are in the thick of it, heartbreak literally, temporarily lowers your IQ. People suffering from heartbreak experience severe, measurable clinical symptoms that share all the hallmarks of traditional loss and grief. Take Miguel, a 56-year-old senior executive. He dated a woman named Sharon for a year, and then she completely blindsided him by walking out. Miguel was utterly devastated. He could barely function at work for months and came this close to losing his job. All over a 1-year relationship, he suffered the exact physical and psychological symptoms you'd expect from profound grief: terrible insomnia, deeply intrusive thoughts, and even immune system dysfunction. And if you think Miguel is an outlier, think again. A staggering 40% of heartbroken people experience clinically measurable depression. 40%. Think about that for a second. Nearly half of everyone going through a breakup is pushed into a clinical depressive state. We're talking about a profound psychological trauma here. Now, what's truly fascinating is the neuroscience driving all that pain. Brain studies show that the withdrawal of romantic love activates the exact same mechanisms in our brain that light up when addicts are withdrawing from substances like cocaine or opioids. Heartbreak is far more insidious than just feeling sad. You are literally going through chemical withdrawal. Let's break down how this addiction dynamic actually plays out. When you're going through withdrawal, your brain screams for its fix. But since you can't have the quote-unquote heroin of actually being with your ex-partner, your unconscious mind begs for the methadone. And what is that methadone? It's obsessing over memories. It's scrolling through old photos. It's spending hours stalking their social media. Now, drug addicts usually know they have an addiction. Heartbroken people, not so much. Every single trip down memory lane is really just you feeding your addiction and making your own emotional pain last longer. Section 2, the closure trap. Now, we all know that figuring out why a relationship ended is super important for moving on, right? But here's the catch. When we're offered a perfectly simple, honest explanation, like Rich telling Kathy he just wasn't in love anymore, we completely reject it. Because the emotional pain is so dramatically severe, our mind tricks us into believing there must be an equally dramatic cause. So what do? We launch these wild goose chases for non-existent clues, cooking up wild conspiracy theories where absolutely none exist. At its core, heartbreak is a total master manipulator. Your instincts are going to trick you into thinking, hey, I'm just trying to solve a mystery, or I just need closure. But remember those brain studies? What you're actually doing is getting your addiction fix. You are intentionally keeping that person in your mind, extending the relationship in your head, and massively complicating your own recovery. To resist this addiction, you cannot sit around waiting for a satisfying answer from your ex. Honestly, no rationale they give will ever magically take away the pain you're feeling. You have to manufacture your own closure using 3 specific, highly logical steps. First, accept the explanation they offered, or just make one up yourself. Second, put the question to rest permanently. And third, you have to let go of destructive hope. Hope is an incredibly damaging thing when your heart is broken. You have to accept that it is definitively over so your mind stops feeding on it. Section 3. Breaking the idealization habit.
One of the absolute most common things we do when our heart is broken is idealize the person who broke it. We'll spend hours reminiscing about their smile or how amazing they made us feel. We basically let our minds play the greatest hits of the relationship on repeat. As the source material so perfectly describes it, it's like being held hostage by our own passive-aggressive Spotify playlist. And literally all this does is make the loss feel exponentially more painful. So what's the cure for this idealization? Well, you have to forcefully balance out those hyper-romanticized memories. If your brain decides to bring up that magical time you made love under the stars, you have to actively slap it with the harsh reality. Like the fact that immediately afterward, you got totally lost coming down the mountain, argued furiously, and gave each other the silent treatment for 2 straight days. You have to force yourself to remember their frown, not just their smile. To actually put this into practice, you need to use what's called the exhaustive list strategy. You're going to compile an exhaustive, brutal list of every single bad quality they had, all of their annoying pet peeves, and write down exactly how awful they made you feel at times. Keep this list right on your phone. And here's the crucial part. You must pull it out and read it the absolute second you feel even a tiny whiff of nostalgia or when your mind tries to tell you they were perfect. Because spoiler alert, they weren't. And the relationship wasn't perfect either. Section 4. Filling the hidden voids. Let's look back at Miguel, the executive we talked about earlier. Losing his partner caused a total systemic collapse of his entire social infrastructure. He didn't just lose Sharon. Because she was the super active one, he lost his supportive church community, their weekly dinners at the house, their weekend camping trips with other couples. He basically lost his entire identity as part of a couple. He knew he had a huge void in his life, but what he missed was that it was actually dozens of smaller, incredibly impactful voids. To successfully fix your heart, you have to identify every single one of these hidden voids and actively, intentionally fill them. You've got to reestablish your personal identity, remembering who you are and what your life is about completely outside of that relationship. You have to rebuild your social life, plan out new weekend activities, and literally put up new art in the empty spaces on the wall where pictures of the two of you used to hang. You have to ensure your ex no longer has a starring role in your life, especially when they shouldn't even be an extra. Section 5. The fight for recovery. Listen, getting over heartbreak is not some passive, gentle journey where time just magically heals all wounds. It's a fight. It is a straight-up battle within your own mind, and your logic and reason are your strongest weapons. Healing requires serious diligence and a conscious, active refusal to be misled by your own addicted brain. And hey, if you're watching a friend go through this, it requires immense patience from you as their support network, because it will always, always take them longer to move on than you think it should. And the stakes here are really high, not just for personal happiness, but even for society as a whole, considering heartbreak leads to billions of dollars in compromised productivity in the workplace. So you've got the science, and you've got the cognitive weapons now. You know how to spot the addiction, how to manufacture your own closure, how to stop the idealization, and how to fill those hidden voids. The only question left to ask yourself is this: are you going to let your mind quietly feed your heartbreak addiction, or will you pick up these weapons, fight for your recovery, and finally take back your life?